Story 1. Lending money to a relative often leads to them abusing your kindness, expecting you to give money for free because you are more financially stable. Story 2. I mistook what I thought was ice cream for a delicious scoop of frozen turkey fat. Story 3. I assumed someone was my friend just because they acted like one. My friend's girlfriend was really cool. I liked her. We hung out occasionally, and she would call and invite me to do things. Many of our plans were canceled, but she initiated most of our contact. 3 years passed. We talked often, especially on Instagram and Facebook. One day I opened Instagram and went to send something to her, but I could not access her profile anymore. I had been blocked. I was also blocked on every other social media site where we were connected. I saw that she and my friend had broken up, but I figured we were close enough that she would want to stay in contact. My friend later told me she had never really liked me. She hated me. In fact, that woman had faked a 3-year friendship and hated me the whole time. Story 4. Having an extended sober streak and then thinking I can moderate and have just a few. Story 5. Ignoring my gut when it says something is not right in a relationship or friendship is a mistake. My ex taught me that even the person I love most can lie to my face, and I will accept it if I want it to be true. Story 6. I thought this would be an easy question, but reflecting on it made me realize I often make the same mistakes. I eventually learn from them, but it still feels terrible. One thing I will never do again after experiencing it once is work too hard, assume I cannot be missed, and tell myself I can still meet the deadline. Slow down and discuss with your colleagues whether they feel the same pressure. Work is important, but not worth destroying your mind and body from stress. One key takeaway. If you are working extra hours to meet a deadline and your family notices increased stress in your behavior, do not deny it. Talk about it and do something about it. Story 7. In any situation that involves an agreement between people, hire a lawyer. I went through a divorce. I thought it was amicable until I received the court documents, and I have been financially and situationally harmed for the rest of my life. Story 8. I once picked up what I thought was a chip from my lap without looking down, and it turned out to be a beetle. Story 9. I let my guard down too fast. It happened in my first relationship, and I ended up regretting how open I was, only to be treated poorly. Next time I'm gonna wait longer. Story 10. Thinking that by loving someone enough, everything will be fine. Story 11. Trusting someone who has already shown me their true colors. Story 12. I did not thoroughly wash my hands after eating very hot wings and then went to urinate. Story 13. Dating someone who does not share my values. Infatuation only lasts so long. Story 14. Accidentally grabbing a live wire while renovating my flat. Story 15. I find it hard to readily trust someone because throughout my life people have taken advantage of me. I learned a lesson over the past few months, and things are going sideways right now. I am trying to stay sane, but it hurts that an almost 10-year friendship has ended because the other person took advantage of me and didn't think I would stand up for myself. Story 16. I was scammed here and will never send money to anyone again. Story 17. I gave more than the required notice to help everyone in the office, but my hours were cut drastically. Story 18. Staying in an unfulfilling, painful relationship just so I do not have to be alone. Story 19. When I took steroids, I got a bit bigger, but as soon as I had an unhealthy meal, my feet and legs swelled severely. I could press my finger into the top of my foot and the indentation remained for a minute. My legs bulged over the tops of my socks. It was fucking gross. Story 20. Staying at a company that undervalues or underpays you because you like your colleagues. Story 21. Allowing someone to convince me to disregard my health problems and cook, clean, and shop for them, while they were fully capable and spoke ill of me behind my back for being lazy, solely because I did not have a job and still had to pay an equal share of expenses. Story 22. Trying to force friendships and be nice to everyone. The world really doesn't deserve this. Story 23. Declare myself first without knowing the other person's intentions. Being humiliated just once is enough. Story 24. I accepted a proposal I did not want without any warning and in front of 100 people. Story 25. I'm not sure I will ever make this mistake again, but I will try not to let people violate my personal boundaries. This relates to many people talking about trusting others. We live in a difficult society where you have to keep your guard up all the time, even around your family. Can be very exhausting. Story 26. I cheated and ruined something good. I haven't been able to forgive myself since. It's been years. Story 27. I have set my expectations very low, so I will not be disappointed. Story 28. I'd never go to a pizza place that lets you order half and half. Once I did, the other half came with a free topping, and I spent an extra $20 on a half I didn't even eat. Story 29. I grabbed a tailpipe that had fallen off the truck in front of me. Story 30. Leaving the door open at night was not necessarily a mistake, because I usually close my apartment door. Around 2 or 3 in the morning, I woke up to get a glass of water, walked to the kitchen, and passed the front door. Someone was trying the handle to see if it would open. I froze, unable to believe it was happening. I kicked the door from the inside, making a noise. The person ran away, but I had woken my wife and child. I was mortified at the possible implications. My wife rushed in asking what had happened. I said I had tripped and kicked the door and apologized for waking them. It was my mistake. The child cannot reach the lock. My wife is very attentive about locking the door, and this scare made me more attentive as well. Story 31. Accidentally taking 2 doses of a medicine too close together can cause problems. I did that with aspirin a couple of years ago, and it led to an exceptionally unpleasant time in the bathroom. Story 32. Making homemade napalm in the 1990s over the kitchen stovetop in a mason jar. Story 33. Being close friends with indirect communicators, people who have no boundaries or cannot say no, can backfire. They may turn things around on you and eventually become resentful. Story 34. Being with someone who stops courting me once I become their girlfriend. Story 35. Getting into a relationship with a single mother. I have done it a few times and I just cannot do it anymore. It is too messy a situation for a man with no children to be in. Story 36. My body was not meant to support life. After one god-awful pregnancy, I will never do that again. I had a hysterectomy, so that should do the trick. Story 37. When I was 12, a friend dared me to eat some Crisco at his house. I do not expect to do that again. Story 38. I share my thoughts and feelings with my family. I have tried many times, but they do not understand me. Story 39. Getting attached to and staying for a friend who uses you only as a diary to vent is painful. They will have the time of their life out there, then run to you when they need to cry, and then think you are an ass when you call them out. Story 40. I'm sorry you're feeling this way. If you are in immediate danger or might act on these thoughts, please call your local emergency number now. If you are in the United States, you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are elsewhere, please contact your local emergency services or a local crisis line. If you can, consider reaching out to a trusted friend, family member, or a mental health professional. If you would still like the sentence corrected, here is a revision. If I make a future mistake that could kill me, I will not repeat it. Story 41. You think renting your spare room to someone in need would be a good idea, but I did it twice and both experiences were awful. The first time I rented to a family friend. It lasted a year, and she treated my place like a date shack, frequently bringing back random people she'd never met. The second time I rented to a colleague from work. It was fine for a month. Then their girlfriend became unexpectedly homeless and turned out to be pregnant. Social services attempted to claim my whole house for them without ever speaking directly to me, and the tenant became increasingly difficult toward the end of the pregnancy. I woke up to the police at 3 a.m. after an argument. He ran to a family member and left my partner and me in the house with her because he believed she had no house key. He then moved out and took her with him, and now they act like a happy family while blaming us for their problems. To anyone tempted to play Good Samaritan, say no. Don't do it, not even once. Story 42. I was taken hostage in Iraq and held for more than 2.5 years. Story 43. Getting married. I'm still married, by the way, but if I'm ever not, I'll never do it again. Story 44. Dating someone with a fearful avoidant attachment style. Fuck that person. Story 45. My mistake was being lazy and not studying. Some time ago, my mother scolded and slapped me for not studying and made me understand that education is important. I did not understand her words then, but the next day I saw our school janitor cleaning the toilets. He greeted me like a friend and I greeted him back. When I asked how he came to this work, he said he started in 2012 and had only completed second grade. I felt sad that he could not continue his education because of financial and personal problems. I resolved to study and felt grateful that I can attend school. Story 46. Some mistakes are impossible to make twice. Hopefully we do not make them even once. For example, throwing dynamite into a campfire or trying to shake hands with a bucket of rattlesnakes. Story 47. Driving on the motorway with a trailer loaded with scrap roofing sheet metal, without placing a pallet or two or similar items on top to stop the sheets from flying off and nearly taking out cars behind. The sheets were strapped down with 3 straps, but the top 2 sheets came loose in a split second despite that. The driver received a $600 fine but sold the remaining sheet metal for $19, resulting in a net loss of $581. Story 48. I hit reply all on a company-wide email with a comment meant for one person. I now check the recipient list 3 times before sending anything. Story 49. Holding a piece of wood in one hand and chopping it with the other. Not all tattoos come in ink. Story 50. Wearing shorts when doing anything outdoors is a bad idea. Natural thorns can seriously injure you, and that is the least of your worries. Story 51. Never fucking invest in that pharmaceutical company. My account shrank by a quarter afterward. Story 52. Grabbing a full cast iron crock pot out of a hot oven with bare hands. Story 53. I have not been able to convince my parents to vaccinate the cats I care for against parvovirus. Story 54. I used to get into heated conversations with strangers online, trying to explain my intentions, laughing out loud. Long ago, when I was in my 20s, I did that once. Now I let it go. To each their own. Story 55. Liquidating assets for a cash infusion when other options are available. Story 56. Getting guilt into a marriage. Why would I do that? I guess I thought anything for an easy life. It was not an easy life. Story 57. I lit a propane grill after the push-button starter failed, without waiting 30 seconds to let the gas dissipate. It's fine though, my eyebrows grew back. Story 58. I left the house for 3.5 months without turning on the air conditioner, thinking I was saving energy. Story 59. I did not maintain the accounts properly. Years of negligence and misconduct led my partners to label me a thief, even though none of the money went to my account or to my personal use. Takes a lot of time to rebuild trust. Story 60. I thought people could be friends, especially in college. They cannot. Story 61. I am getting married. My ex says the same. One of the few things we agree on. Laughing out loud. Story 62. Incorrectly assuming someone is pregnant. Incorrectly assuming someone changed their name because they got married. Story 63. I got involved in a land war in Asia. Fuck me. I will never do that again. Story 64. I locked my keys in my car. Thankfully, I was at home and had a second set. Whenever I close my car's trunk, I put the keys in the opposite hand from the one I used to close the trunk. Story 65. I will never trust anyone again or help people who do not deserve it. Story 66. I bought a celebrity autograph poster at an online auction. I was scammed badly and missed many red flags. Story 67. I let myself end up in situations where my hands are tied, no matter how nice the person helping me is. They may be generally nice, but many people suddenly change how they treat you if they sense you need them or are dependent on them for any reason. Story 68. I gave myself to people who never even saw me. I cannot believe this is considered normal. Story 69. Lighting thermite on top of a bottle with homemade napalm. Story 70. Trying to remove your contact lenses after you just chopped up a bunch of ghost peppers with your bare hands. Story 71. I drove after drinking too much. I was lucky once. I will not take that chance again. Story 72. Leaving someone in the present because of someone from the past. Story 73. Getting addicted to gambling and internet sports betting pulled me in when I was a freshman at university. I had financial issues growing up, and betting felt like the fastest way to get money. I pawned my notebook and my phone, borrowed money from everyone I knew, and ran away from home. I spent a few months living on the street but managed to rebuild my life. I am now a senior at university and work during my free time. My motto now is you are most stress-free when you have no debts. Story 74. Being born. Please do not make me do it again if reincarnation is real. I want off this ride. Story 75. Holding a token from a new cryptocurrency project. I now understand and will sell it. Story 76. Letting our neighbors use our Wi-Fi was a mistake. Too often they were only friendly because they wanted something. They would start off promising to always ask before connecting, but our data usage showed they were not honest. When we cut off a device that was draining our connection, they became loud and disruptive like a child having a tantrum. Fortunately, that family left the neighborhood, though I later saw their children stealing entire bowls of candy in a nearby area. Similar things happened with other neighbors, so now we no longer share our connection. Story 77. Stepping on a rake to see if it really cracks you in the head like in cartoons. Story 78. Stop wasting time working. Fuck your we are family bullshit, your more loyalty bullshit, and the shitty behavior of others because you do not bend your back to their will. Story 79. Allowing myself to reach the point where I hurt people I care about instead of seeking help for myself. Story 80. Locking myself out of any important door was a terrible experience. I was the only person on site who was responsible. I was about 25 and barely capable of being responsible for anything. Now, every time I close an important locked door, I look at the key before I close the door. Feeling the key or just knowing where I put it is not acceptable. I have to see the key. I have been fastidious for over a decade and I have not repeated this mistake once. Story 81. I hooked up a car battery backward. I set a new record for blowing the highest ampere fuse. Story 82. I stayed in a job because I was worried about a short tenure on my curriculum vitae. I did not apply to other jobs when I had the chance. I thought the situation might improve, but in the end I have been out of work for several months, and someone who joined my old department after me got a job I had applied for. It seems that itchy feet are not a bad thing and are possibly easier to explain than a gap on your curriculum vitae. Story 83. I often do not tell people I love them when I do. I got a second chance at life a while back. If people use me, taking more than they give, I do not push them out of my life. But if I care about someone and they care about me, I tell them what I think. Even the smallest words can make someone's day. For example, I see you put a lot of effort into your hairstyle, it always looks amazing. Story 84. I poured boiling water straight into my open palm because I held the colander by the bottom with one hand while pouring with the other. Story 85. Watching scary movies to impress my partner, even though they give me night terrors. Story 86. That time I bit into a soap bar at my friend's baby shower, thinking it was a pink cookie. Story 87. Move in with someone. No roommates or girlfriend. I can afford to pay my rent. If you cannot, that is your problem. Story 88. Public service announcement. 3 times 3 does not equal 27. I will not make that error again. Story 89. I'll never take a job so seriously that it becomes my purpose, value, or identity. The human experience is so much more, and I learned that the hard way. Story 90. Office relationships and casual sex partners. In my case, it means not making the mistake a third time. Sure, it is amazing for the first month. Sneaking kisses behind the building on break and the electric rush of having a secret. But once the novelty wears off and the first fight happens, and it will, it becomes absolute hell. There is no faster way to make you hate your job than having to see someone every day you are mad at or trying to avoid. And no matter how discreet you think you are, everyone in the office knows. Take it from me, young people, your job is never worth a temporary fling. That high crashes hard, and you will be sifting through the wreckage for months. Story 91. I lent my college class notes to a classmate, which was beyond my control. She dropped the class and I had no contact number. Story 92. Buying any kind of warranty is rarely worthwhile. I have almost never had one honored. I bought them for personal computers, televisions, projectors, appliances, and even a pet. Only once, for a car transmission issue, was a warranty honored. Companies will go to absurd lengths to claim that a failure is the customer's fault or not covered. They treat it as a user-end issue, not a warranty issue. Story 93. Being with a jealous partner. I have close friends of different genders, and I am not going to justify it or feel guilty about it ever again. Story 94. Being friends with my boss. Staying in a ridiculously underpaid job because I believe in the mission. Tolerating abuse from clients, regardless of their mental health. Working in social work. I have done this many times. Story 95. Allowing a relative who is experiencing financial difficulties to move into your home is not advisable. Don't ever do this, folks. Story 96. I added boiling water to our mini pool to warm it up. Second and third degree burns on my leg and foot taught me that was a very bad idea. Story 97. Getting back with a previous girlfriend was a huge mistake. Story 98. I let my guard down around fireworks. A few years ago, I suffered second-degree burns on both hands. Fortunately, I did not lose any fingers. It was some of the most grueling pain I have ever experienced. I have always been careful around fireworks, but no matter how safe you are, malfunctions can still occur. Now I do not handle fireworks anymore. I watch from a distance, laughing out loud. Story 99. I did not research my tenant rights before getting my first apartment. Story 100. I dated a psychologist. She always made me believe I had to change, and I believed it. Takes two to tango. She abandoned me when my parents were sick because she said she lacked the capacity. I understand setting boundaries, but this hurt me and lowered my self-worth considerably. I still struggle. Story 101. Buying a more expensive house before selling the first one, thanks to interest rate hikes. Story 102. I will never marry someone with borderline personality disorder again. Story 103. Letting someone talk about me like that is unacceptable. If you disrespect me once without remorse, I will not let it happen again. Story 104. I tried to help a friend who could not understand that the problem was with them, not everyone else. I and many others gave up. Story 105. Date beneath me. You can never bring someone up, but they can bring you down. Story 106. Going to a chiropractor resulted in 2 strokes. Renting a home to a family member resulted in being burned twice. Talking about marital issues with family and friends has led to being burned multiple times. Sharing a secret with my sister proved unwise because she cannot keep confidences. Story 107. Despite my intuition telling me he no longer loved me and only wanted sex, I thought I could make him love me again by sleeping with him. The sex did not feel great anymore because there was no love left between us. Story 108. People often overestimate adult life when they turn 18. Lately, many have been going through difficult times. At 18, you may think you will take over the world, but life can hit you hard and force you to confront reality. Story 109. Giving up my friendships with other women because of a jealous partner. Story 110. I've been there and done that. No, I am not required to put out. Story 111. Getting drunk and falling asleep with my backside on a radiator. Story 112. Falling in love again. I low-key miss how it felt, but I still do not want to get my ass hooped again. Story 113. I am not being offered a courtesy car option on my car insurance and will be without a car for weeks. Story 114. I got my account balance down to $5. Never again.
Story 115. Faire travailler des amis sur des projets trop importants. J'ai fait appel à un ami courtier pour mon prêt bancaire. Il laissait tout traîner, ça a pris des plombes, il mettait des jours à répondre. Et comme c'était un ami, je n'osais pas dire grand-chose.
Story 116. It is niche, but I am sacrificing my Mog fanatic to try to kill a Tarmogoyf. Story 117. I will never join the army again. I'd rather be homeless. If I were drafted for service, I would either end up in prison or kill members of my own side who tried to force me. Story 118. I will never hurt my husband like I did. I have grown and am not the same person. I do not want him to experience that pain again from me or anyone else. Story 119. Trust without verifying. No matter what their words say, their actions and outcomes will always speak louder and more clearly about their intent and who you are to them. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.